Hello and welcome everyone to the live demo for dependency scanning. Today is April 2nd and Olivier will be showing us the demonstration. So Olivier, please take it away.
Yeah, thanks. Welcome everybody. So let me share my screen and let's get started. So you should now see the scorecard. So this demo is following the latest update based on last time feedback on how we want to show the scorecard. So this is just a step that we want to validate. And each line is actually a link to an anchor into the dependency scanning demo script, which has a detailed script to follow. So please avoid playing with that script while I'm running through it. And we'll go back to that scorecard after each step is completed to score it. Is that clear for everyone? Good. Okay, let's go. So the first thing we want is to set up and prove the air-gapped environment. We assume that this air-gapped environment has already been set up because this is something that is time consuming. So we have this Google Platform console that shows the multiple VM that we have set up. We have this one, which is the GitLab air-gapped test, which is where we have installed the GitLab self-managed instance. And we also are leveraging the GitLab air-gapped bastion host, which is something we're leveraging to inject some data into the air-gapped test instance. And we also have those two brand new hosts, which are NPM and PyP registries. And I will come back to that later. I will log in into the bastion host, the air-gapped test instance, just for the sake of demonstrating that it cannot reach out to the outside. We have egress rules in the firewall that block everything which is outgoing, with few exceptions that are brand new, and these are allowing egress call to the internal network to allow the air-gapped instance to reach out to the two other VMs where we have installed the package registries. This is brand new and this is necessary for dependency scanning, and I will come back later to that. But everything that is outside of this network is not reachable. So here I'm trying to reach out to the registry.gitlab.com on those various ports, and this should all be blocked. I can show you also that this instance is accessible from the outside on HTTPS. I'm using this host name because I explicitly added that to my etc host file on my machine for the simplicity of playing with that air-gapped environment. This is also available over SSH from the outside. So as you can see, all of these calls have been timed out. And now I will try to set up the dependency scanning feature on this test project. So this is a project that has been created on this air-gapped instance. This is a simple JavaScript project with some dependencies, just one to be honest, which is Lodash version that contains some vulnerabilities. And for the sake of this demonstration, the dependency has been built within the project itself. So we have rendered the dependency, which is available directly here, so that it doesn't make any external call. This is for, again, simplicity and for the demonstration. I will come back later to the challenges we're facing for dependency scanning to have a more realistic approach of testing this. So the way we are setting this up is leveraging the documentation, the starter documentation for dependency scanning. So I can just open the web ID here and create a new file, which will be a GitLab CI YAML file, and just include those two lines. Moving this to a new branch and pushing that to a merge request. So the pipeline is now running with a dependency scanning job. And as we can see, soon it will fail because it's trying by default to reach out to the gitlab.com registry to download the Docker images. Again, what I can show about this test project is that currently there is nothing configured about security and compliance features. As you can see here, the security dashboard is also empty. The dependency list is empty. So there is no vulnerability data available yet. So as mentioned, this job is currently failing because it tries to reach out to the official Docker registry to download some images that are necessary for the setup. And this will ultimately fail after a few retries. I will also add this airgap job, which is kind of a little testing job that we use to show, to show that we cannot reach out the internet from the CI jobs. So I will just add that again here. So what this job is doing is it's trying to wget on registry.gitlab.com. And if it fails, it will exit successfully. But if it succeeds, it will exit with a failure. So we want this job to succeed by failing to reach out to registry.gitlab.com. All right, so while this is running, we'll just making sure that this job is succeeding. And we should now reach the end of this first step and start to grade it once this job is passing. Any questions so far? And I'm sorry, because when sharing the screen, I have a limited views of you all. I really wish we had this Gary view, but I don't.
No questions.
Yeah, no questions so far.
Thanks. So as mentioned, this is trying to connect to registry.gitlab.com. And it can't. And the job succeeds. And this one will fail again, as mentioned earlier. So we are now seeing that by default, this is not working in a negative environment. So going back to the scorecards, is there anything that is preventing to have a 5 on this?
Yeah, sure.
Oops. So sorry about that. I mean, I'm doing it, but if someone wants to jump and make it.
Yeah, I can capture it for you, Olivier.
Thanks.
That's fine.
So let's now move to the second step, which is about showing how we set up and configure this within the AGAP environment. So we have some documentation available about how to set up things into an AGAP environment. This is really brand new. We are making a lot of changes constantly to this documentation. We have some specific documentation for the security features that we are providing. And we have some specific directions for some of those features to explain how to set this up within an offline environment. We don't yet have this one for dependency scanning because this is still work in progress. So instead of that, I will show you what we're currently working on in this issue and try to work through this. So basically what we need to do in an AirGap environment is making sure that we are providing the scanners which are published as Docker images. And in the case of dependency scanning, we also need additional content like the vulnerability database, because the way the scanner are working is that we have an engine which is shipped within this analyzer Docker images, but we also have an external vulnerability database that contains non-vulnerabilities for packages. And then the engine is matching this non-vulnerabilities with the dependencies that you are really using within your projects. So we need those analyzer, TireJS, and Gymnasium here because vulnerability is specific to Remediation, which is not being tested yet. And for TireJS, we have those two JSON files, which are the vulnerability database. And for the Gymnasium analyzer, we have this Gymnasium DB, which is published as a Git repository. You also probably need to have a private yarn or an npm registry, for example, if you are using JavaScript packages. This will be highly dependent on the way you are building your environment, but anything that you need to build your project, like being able to download packages at the build time will probably be already set up in your environment, and we need to make our tool able to leverage this. We'll come back later to that. And then the final step is to override the dependency scanning definition so that it works with this configuration. So let's also explain a bit how we are doing this within the airgap instance, because obviously we cannot download the features, the scanners and other requirements from the outside. So here I'm just connecting from my local machine to the Bastion host using SSH. The Bastion host has access to the GitLab.com registry where I can pull Docker images. And when they are there, I can save them into tar archive files to then send them over SSH to the airgap instance, because this is a no traffic channel. And then when they are there, we can load them into the registry and make them available to the CI jobs. This step number 5 is what will vary depending on how you've set up your offline environment and your company policy when it comes to security, compliance checks, etc. Everything you do to inject data into your airgap environment. I will just now connect to the Bastion host and show you quickly this script that I'm using, which is just doing what I will explain later earlier, which is taking these two images, pulling them from the GitLab.com registry, saving them, and sending them over SSH to the airgap instance, which is the IP, internal IP stated there. For the sake of time, this has already been done, and we can now see that these Docker images are available on the container registry of the airgap instance, as you can see here. And we've put them into specific subprojects within the analyzer group. So here we have the Gymnasium images available under the Docker tag number 2. We have the same one for the retired JS analyzer here, Docker tag number 2. And we also needed the database, as mentioned earlier. So here is the repository where I put the 2 JSON files that are necessary for retired.js, which are available over HTTPS by using zero access to the file. And finally, the Gymnasium database, advisory database, which is available at the simple Git repository. So now that we have put all this information within the airgap instance, we can configure the job to run within an airgap environment. So this is a small script that I'm just copy pasting, and I will explain. Let me go back here. I will merge this merge request. Well, I should not. Not a big deal. It won't work. So I will just restart a new branch from there. So just for the sake of explaining this, this is exactly the same thing, including the dependency scanning job, and then overriding some variables to make it working within airgap environment and keeping this airgap check job. So what we want to do here is to make sure we are disabling the Docker in Docker mode, which is something we're trying to get rid of, which is leveraging an orchestration layer so that we have just one dependency scanning job that spin up subcontainers for each of the languages that are compatible with your project. But this creates some several drawbacks, and we want to get rid of that, and this will probably be deprecated. This will probably be removed after 13.0. So for airgap support, we really need to disable this and use separate jobs for each analyzer. Then we need to specify and tell the analyzer where to find these new Docker images, which is achieved by specifying this environment variable. Here we are using CI registry, which is a prefilled variable from the runner that just replaced with this host name. So both works, just for the sake of demonstration here. And then we have the retired.js JSON DB that are set here, and the Gymnasium DB remote URL. So just showing that it is reaching out to the raw JSON file, as I was showing earlier. And now the Gymnasium database, which is pointing to this Git repository within the instance. We also need to disable the SSL check for Git, because when we're trying to download this Gymnasium database as a Git repository, this will fail due to the self-signed certificate. This is something we're working on currently, but in the meantime, we need some workarounds to disable those checks. Any questions so far?
No questions.
So let's commit this and open a merge request. So we now have multiple jobs because we have, instead of having this one dependency scanning job, we are disabling Docker in Docker mode. So we now have 2 jobs, one for each analyzer, and still the check airgap job here. So as you can see, the gymnasium analyzer is now downloading the image directly from this local airgap instance registry. It's also downloading the, where is it? It's downloading the database. Am I on the gymnasium one? Yep, here. It's downloading the Git that gymnasium DB from this local instance to running the analysis, and this works successfully. Now what we can see is for retire.js, this is not the same thing. It's actually trying to get those 2 JSON files, but it's failing. There is not much logging there, but the expectation is that there is some SSO check that is failing here. So we'll come back to this later, but this is not working for this specific analyzer. So as you can see, even for the same project, the same language, and same package manager, we might have different solutions to implement for the different package managers. So now that this pipeline has run, we should see the results in the merge request. So you can see we detected 3 vulnerabilities for the source branch. It says the source branch only because there is no comparison point, because for now there are no available reports from the default branch. So we can see it found 3 vulnerabilities on that dependency that we added. There are some links available here pointing to some external database and documentation. This is working again because I'm from my machine and I have access to the internet. This may not be available depending on how your network is set up for people using your airgap instance.
And real quick, Olivier, a question. It seems to me like you're showing step 4 at this point. Is that correct? And
I won't go too far. Yes, I'm just
okay.
showing quickly. It's hard to stay away from those nice things to show.
Right.
So we have now set up this. I will merge that, which is the next step. Where is it? Sorry, going back to.
And I know that you showed the configuration page, but once you merge that, make sure to show the dependency list.
Yep. So now we still don't have anything on the security dashboard and dependency list because those scans were not running on the default branch. So there is nothing yet. And the configuration page should have shown the same things, but since I've just merged it, it's now showing configured because it's seeing one pipeline on the default branch that is currently running, but that has at least one job that is supposed to output a report for dependency scanning. So when this pipeline will succeed, we should show results on the other areas. So I will stop there so that we can grade the second step, which is setting up within the airgap environment. So the generic process is okay, but as we can see, this might need some per language grading, which is why the sub-steps have been added at the end. But just for the sake of demonstrating this, this was done here.
Was there a follow-up item for retire.js when we showed the logs? There was some comments around that.
This will be part of the step 7 of validating JavaScript with NPM and Yarn, step 7 and 8. Those steps should not pass if retire.js doesn't work. unless we accept that and we split into 2 different steps, for example.
Cool. I like it. More clarity and specification. And kudos to the steps. This has been really much easier to follow than last time.
Agreed.
Todd, would you like to take the honors to grade? And Kevin?
Yeah, exactly. So feel free to let me know where you believe we landed.
That was to me, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, just making sure. Oh, geez. And most of it was here. I know there's like, obviously we're gonna, there's the issue to complete the documentation. I think, I'd like to see the final documentation and verify that, it makes sense like the other ones have. And then, sorry, I'm just looking through the Word doc to see if there's any other points that need a little bit of work. Because we kind of went past 2, right? So I'm trying to just grade 2, right? Sorry.
Correct. Yeah.
It has to be whole numbers, right?
Yeah.
We only have 5.
I'm kind of debating. I guess a 3 or a 4 is what I'm thinking. I don't know. I'd appreciate some help from the team.
All right. So yeah, I would say we should shoot low. Then if you're between a 3 and 4, let's say 3, and then we can go back and work on it and show it again.
Yeah, and I'm honestly confused with one of the things, whether it's step 2 or whether it's one of the future steps, with like the issue with the reading the database. That might be a future step that needs work and not step 2. So it might be that step 2 is just a 4.
What do you mean by reading the database?
Okay, no, maybe I'm misinterpreting, but the step that, one of the scanners succeed and one of the scanners is having an issue with getting to the database. I thought it was the database,
Yeah.
or the JSON database, right? Like that one, right? Yeah.
So
That would be, I
confusing.
think, after.
Or is that in another step? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, because right now we're trying to show if we can set up and configure, not that a particular scanner ran.
Yep. That's where I got confused. Sorry, when you get put on the spot and the thing's being recorded.
Yeah, it's hard to define. We could consider all the steps as a substep of this one. It's not easy to grade those separately. I agree.
Yeah. That's okay. So that's why I was saying maybe it's a 4 then for just step 2, since it's really just the configure part.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if we want all those steps to be mandatory for completing this MVC, then I think this should be a 5, and only when all of those are 5. I don't know if you agree with this.
Which one were you pointing at, Olivier? Sorry.
Sorry, I'm sharing the screen at the same time. So I think that we can show that setup and config works only when all of the supported languages are working. So this should be a 5 only when all of those are 5 too, unless we consider that we are.
I consider being able to follow the directions and follow the setup and do the configuration.
Okay.
Is that step, but to your point, like as soon as one fails, I think we have to like give it like a 1, or because I think that's the lowest score for anything that. So like when retire.js fails or whatever, we can't show the results of the pipeline. We can't show that particular language. And so those both would be dinged, because show results of pipeline is for everybody, right?
Okay, yeah.
And also, in this special case, since it's different than some of the other ones, I think that since it looks like there might be different steps for each analyzer for setup, that from a scoring perspective, it might make sense to, if only one of the scanners isn't well documented or doesn't make sense, then I don't see why you would fault step 2. I think I would fault the step that it's in, but that might require, I don't know. I think I've gone too far.
No, that's all right. What we can do, I understand what you're saying, but what we can do is there's a comments right next to it, so we can capture it on the specific type and the comment and say why, like step 8 is a 2,
Right.
because of missing documentation or what have you. So does that sound reasonable?
Sure. And then can I ask one question as well, which was so the JSON files that you were pointing to, which we're referring to as the databases, or that basically those are things that contain what the current listing of all of the different dependency vulnerabilities, and was that what is in the JSON, or is that in the image?
These JSON files are currently external, and the way we can solve this for air gap environment is to bundle them within the instance, but then this will come with an update frequency that is tied to our own maintenance policy, or we can find a way to make this working, because I'm pretty sure this is coming with certificates issues. So if we manage to disable that checks or provide a way to provide custom certificates, it will work this way. And this will allow every customer to define their own update policy of this database, which is the preferred way for us, I think.
Okay, I think I understand. So normally those files are hosted on an external website, like a website owned by a different company.
For the scanner running the GitLab.com, this is an external. This is calling, I think, within the GitHub repository directly, something like
Gotcha.
that.
Okay, gotcha.
Or an external website.
And so they have to bring those down and host them, and so hosting them in GitLab is a logical thing to do, like you've done. Gotcha. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood that. Okay, I think I understand that. All right, thanks.
All right, so let's move on to the step 3. So we will just create a merge request to add some new items. So I will add this dependency because I know it will add some new vulnerabilities. Just checking the pipelines are done here. Yeah, they are still failing with, not failing, they're succeeding, but with a failing job, which is retire.js, which is the expected behavior. So let's reopen the web IDE. Oh, no, sorry, I cannot do that within the web IDE because I need to run the tool itself. So I will go back to my local machine where I have this repository available here. And what I will do is adding these new dependencies to the package.json file and run the npm install command.
So you're basically adding an entry into the database,
so
effectively.
For the purpose of demonstrating how where security scanner is reacting to changes put into the repository, this is dependency scanning. So changing a line of code, the source code won't do anything, but the way this will be triggered is by adding new dependencies or removing existing dependencies, which will trigger a diff on the merge request. Let's trigger a diff on the result of the scanner. So this has not run. If I'm looking back to the log file, which is a manifest of what is really installed for that project, we can see that this dependency is now visible here, as long as tons of other sub-dependencies. And I will just add that. Again, for the sake of this demo, the dependencies are vulnerable, so I'm adding to the repository what has been added to the node modules, which is the local storage for these dependencies. Adding the package.json and the package log.json file, and we should good to go. Yeah. So let's see. And pushing that to the repository. Again, this is possible. This is not possible because I'm pushing on master. Sorry about this. Good demonstration of pushing to master is bad and by default rejected because it's a protected branch. So I can now create a merge request. By the way, with this end link provided here, when you create a new branch, it allows you to have a direct link to create a merge request. So this merge request is adding up tons of changes thanks to rendering the non packages that have been added. Again, this is just for the sake of the demo. We don't expect people to do that on a daily basis. And this is breaking a bit the diff because it's limited to the first 1,000 changes. But it's not something really important for this demo. We just want to have a look at the corresponding pipeline. We don't have any pipeline here like this. That's a bit odd. I don't know why we don't have any pipeline around for this merge request. I'm hoping the AGAP instance is not under some outage.
To be clear to everyone, this is step 3.
Yep.
3C. 3B, sorry.
Yeah. So I'm pushing the changes, creating a merge request. It should have triggered a pipeline. The source branch is 4 commits behind the target branch. Okay, so I should have done that earlier. I created an okay, so this is maybe coming from this issue because I had an outdated branch locally. So I will rebase my branch. Back again. Still, I have really no idea why this is not triggering a pipeline. This is the very first time I'm encountering this. Thank you, the demo. Okay, so we now have this pipeline. This is interesting. So we now have this pipeline running, which is the expected behavior. Again, we have the 3 jobs running here. The retired JS1 may fail, as expected. The gymnasium one is succeeding. So now let's have a look at the merge request view, which should show a diff. This is a non-bug. It says that we had errors when loading the results. It's because we have some results available, but the pipeline has not been completed. And we need the pipeline to complete to be sure that all the jobs generating a report have been successfully finished. So we have ongoing issues to improve that, by the way, but this is a bit annoying. I'm pretty sure this is the AGAP job. Yeah, the AGAP job is still running. Done. Okay, so reloading, the pipeline should not be completed. And the circuit scanning data should show up here. So as you can see, it showed that we added 2 new vulnerabilities with this merge request, which are on those 2 dependencies. So we can stop here and grade the fact that we can successfully trigger some dependency scanning when we are pushing changes to the repository.
Can you go back to the pipeline page again?
Sure.
So it had how many jobs running? Okay.
So it had the same ones.
Yep.
Do we know which one took a while for it to appear? Is it performance?
The check air gap one was the latest one. We also have only 2 runners running on this project. So it depends on the load of the runner that you have in your pool. It depends on which analyzer you're running because each of them may have different implementation. So it may take longer than others. It depends on the language because, for example, here the analyzer is pretty simple. They are just scanning the manifest file, the package.json, and get all the information they need from there. Some of them need to install the dependencies. Some of them need to take longer. This is really a case-by-case basis. And obviously, for the demo, we just have these jobs. But if you add all the jobs in your pipeline, like a review app deployment, thing like that, it would be even more annoying because until everything is completed, you don't have the results of the security scans.
Yeah, I think this is where Nicole and I chat, and we want to test like an all-in-one at the end with the bigger 2K environment. And I think we can be more lenient here, but let's keep an eye out for performance when everything comes together. If it's taking long for some jobs to come up, it might be some other improvements we need to help this group out. Maybe some other group can expedite some fixes in terms of performance. That's my advice.
Yeah, the problem here is not exactly the performance of these jobs, but the fact that we have to wait the whole pipeline to complete before showing the results. So we need to adapt this way we are fetching results to be more granular based on maybe the report type, so that if all the jobs that are supposed to create dependency scanning results are completed, we can show dependency scanning results.
Okay.
Right, but that's not related to air gaps. So
no, this is
I don't view that as part of the MVC, but it would be nice to have. Yeah, I see your point. So just to be clear, you think the issue that you ran into was just some kind of mismatch between your local and the server in terms of that one branch, so that's forcing you to rebase to get the pipeline to trigger. Is that what we think happened? It was just kind of independent of the. Is that what you think?
This is the first time I encountered that. Obviously, we always play with the GitLab.com instance. We have set up this gap instance with the knowledge we have about setting up a GitLab, but we are not all sysadmins. So we may have missed some things, but this is a very odd behavior, to be honest. Even with having discrepancies between the master branch and the feature branch, this should not happen. It might be worth checking in the logs what happened there, but I'm not expecting this to be something reoccurring often into a gap instance.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree based on my experience with. I was looking at it too and going, why didn't the pipeline run? So yeah, that seems to have just been a quirk. Since we are going to be revisiting some other things with this one, we could just make a note to like pay attention to that to see if it's an additional issue. But I think that the spirit of it definitely was met.
I have a quick question on the merge request page that you were just on. Does it normally show unknown : before the vulnerability, or is that something due to the air gap?
This is the severity. The only analyzer that is currently running, which is Gymnasium, doesn't yet provide the severity information to the reported vulnerability. This is already available in the database. We just have one missing issue to get the information from the database and put into the report to show it in the view. So this may appear really soon.
Okay.
That would also be more step 4, but yeah, this is unknown is one of our like 4 or 5 acceptable labels for that area.
Okay, cool, thank you.
All right, so we're good for, oh no, don't have the rating for 3.
So is that a 4 because we had some general concerns to investigate?
I would just like to see it when we revisit it, but yeah, I would give it a 4 in that case, or a 4.5 if we could. We need to go to 10. I could give it a 9.
Whole number 9.
All right, so step 4, showing the results. So if you go to the pipeline view, you can have the full report of what has been found within this specific branch or this specific commit and this specific pipeline. Because if you have multiple pipelines running on the same commit, you could have different results depending on the freshness of the database. If between the 2 pipelines, some data have been added there, but this is unlikely to happen in that demo, by the way. But this is something that we should be aware of because it can happen. So you have the security tabs here showing all the vulnerability that have been found within that report. that you can also filter. Here we just have dependency scanning data, but if you have multiple one, you can also filter by severities. You get tons of information here. Again, some external links may not work depending on the setup of your environment. And you have also some internal links like the project that has been impacted by this, which here is obvious, but in the context of a broader view, this might be useful. You have a link, which is an internal link to the file where we found that dependency, and again, some external link and the severity, which is unknown here. We also have the solution. We don't have auto remediation available here, so you can only create an issue so that you can treat that and process that within your usual SDLC. This is putting all the metadata we have into this issue. You can assign it to an engineer, set priority, etc., etc. We also should be able to provide a way to automatically create a merge request, but this is not yet available for this kind of package manager. We only support this for the YARN package manager and also for container scanning, which is another feature. So as you can see here, I created an issue, but I could also, for example, I consider this is not a relevant one, so I can dismiss it and say, this is not relevant, which is not a very interesting comment for other people, but just for the sake of the demo. So this is not hidden, you don't see here. So it doesn't annoy and clutter the view, but you can toggle this here, and this is visible again, and you can see what has been dismissed. Now, if I go back to the merge request, as I was mentioning earlier, we are just showing here the differences between those changes you've put in this merge request and the default branch, which is here, or the target branch, which is here, the master branch, at the time you created that feature branch. This is very important to know. If your branch is 1,000 commits behind the master branch, this will not be an up-to-date report because you're comparing with what was in master 1,000 commits earlier. This is the same thing at comparing with alt code. So usually the best practice is, if this is the case, and GitLab is mentioning that, by the way, that you are 1,000 commit behind, for example, you should rebase to make sure you have an up-to-date version to compare with. And again, here you have access to this model metadata, and you can do the same actions like creating issue or dismissing it. And here, this is null design, by the way. We have an upcoming issue to make this more beautiful, like we have in the pipeline view. I just explained why remediation cannot work here. For another project where remediation would be available, this might still not work within the air gap environment. This really depends on how the remediation is being implemented. In the case of dependency scanning, this could be just upgrading the dependency. For example, I could have auto remediation generating a patch that say, hey, this is fixed. Let me show that. So we know we have an issue with Lodash. It says this is fixed in 4.17.11. So what the patch would do is just doing this, running the npm install, having the package log updated, and creating a merge request with those changes. So this fix would work if within the airgap instance, we are able to fetch this information from the local registry where you're storing all the packages. So again, the remediation might not work.
If they're keeping the registry with updated and improved versions, there's the potential that it will work. But if they're not always pulling in the latest versions, it won't be able to find them.
Exactly. We are in the process, if it's not already done, of documenting clearly that the remediation is not something that works well within airgap or offline environments. I should adapt my phrasing. I'm used to say airgap in all the demo. I'm sorry about this. So this is offline environment. Anything else? Oh yeah, sorry. Show the dashboard. How could I miss that? So the
The
dashboard.
project and the group.
So the dashboard is a view of the latest. It's a snapshot view of the latest status of your project. So the latest pipeline that run on the default branch. So we can see the two dependencies, the two vulnerabilities, plus the one dismissed that we had on the master branch. I will go ahead and merge this branch that is adding two new vulnerabilities. This is something we should avoid in general, but this will to show you the update that it will cause on the security dashboard. We also have the dependency list available now. So we have this Lodash component with 3 known vulnerabilities that we have found, and it's also listed here. We have those 2 tabs because you might have a tons of vulnerabilities of components being reported there, and you might just want to focus on the vulnerable ones. So again, the vulnerabilities are shown here. And again, the configuration page is still showing that it is configured. Checking the pipeline. So we know I've merged a merge request, so the pipeline is running on master. And once this is completed, this will update the dashboard and the dependency list pages.
Just to be clear, while we're waiting on a moment for that, when we add in additional analyzers or languages, we'll most likely see other types other than unknown, as you mentioned earlier. Just the one that's working happens to just report unknown, but other ones do report other types. So if we include those in a future one, we'll be able to see different severities. Is that an accurate summary?
Yeah. The metadata available for every reported vulnerability really depends on each analyzer because it depends on the underlying scanner, what they can report. This is not something that we are adding. This is the case for Gymnasium because Gymnasium is an in-house analyzer and we have a dedicated team feeding the database. And so this is why we will soon have this. But if we are using an open source tool that doesn't provide that information, there is no way we can do it.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understood. Yeah, and it's good.
So we now can reload the dashboard. Oops, sorry. And we should see the new ones being added for the other packages. So we now have those 2 additional ones here. And the dependency list should also be updated. So as you can see, we now have tons of new dependencies because JavaScript hell, when you add a dependency, it comes with a lot of sub-dependencies. And this is where having a dedicated tab for vulnerable components is relevant. And you also wanted to show you the group dashboard. So this is within the test group. So I can go here to the security tab and have the group dashboard showing up here. We might have also continuous scanning here, vulnerabilities, so I can filter and only have those that have been reported in dependency scanning. Again, I can hide the dismissed item or show them and have some statistics on the projects. And again, from there, I can do the same actions. Anything else you want me to show for this results step?
No, I think that's good.
Right, are we ready to rate it?
Sure. So for that one, I mean, my only comment is it would be, in the future, it'd be nice to see the other severities, but everything worked appropriately. And we know that as we add those other ones, we'll be able to see, other severities. But so I think technically I'd have to say this is probably a 5 then, since we'll see those with the other ones.
Okay, yeah, and the other ones should most definitely show the severities.
Yeah, at least 1 or 2. It's just,
yeah,
it's nice to see those.
I mean, we could always put it as a 4 until we do it again and get a variety.
I'm okay either way. But again, I'll give this one a 4.75. You can round it up.
I think Nicole is right here because I think a 5 is like no concerns, but I think there's still some. So
okay. All right, fair enough.
let's set the bar high and let's say 4. We will see it again
All right,
next
so
time.
we're doing a strict
Repeat.
round down. Gotcha.
All right. We are close to run out of time. I can run through some of them. I have 3 available. I don't know if it makes sense to have this being done offline or in this live session. Just for the sake of simplicity, this doesn't read you all the steps that we went through of this demo because a lot of the stuff is generic. And as far as we have the pipeline running, the job running, and producing the report, all the rest of the behavior is 100% generic. And what we've graded with the demo I've just made should be exactly the same. So what to me is relevant to test here for each of the languages is to make sure we can configure them and make sure that the job is successfully running, getting the external dependency it needs, and showing results in the pipeline dashboard and dependency list to make sure it's working. But we don't need to, recreate a merge request, add changes to this, etc., etc. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely would agree. I don't know what others think, but I would definitely agree with that.
Yep, sounds good.
All right. So just real quick, do you think we should have another demo either later this week, next week, to show the other ones that we can run, or how do you want to go about doing that?
I think what we need at least to make sure that even if it's live or offline, we can go through all the steps for all those languages if we want to make sure that we are providing them and they are working. Whether it's relevant to do that in live sessions, I don't think it is, but I'm fine doing it. It's just that it's a bit boring.
Yeah, to me the most, sorry.
Go ahead, Kevin.
To me the most important part is making sure that the instructions are clear, because the way that these are going to work is most folks are going to be configuring it for the languages just for their project and not going to care about the other the other ones at that time. And so just making sure it's clear, like if I'm doing Java and JavaScript, here's what I need to do, or if I'm doing Java and JavaScript, here's what I need to do, and then just seeing those results at the end. Those are the 2 most important things to me for the 5 through 13.
Yeah, obviously we'll do our best to make sure that the setup is transparent. If we can bundle every necessary step within the image of the scanner itself, this would be the best approach, but everything that would be scanner specific would have to be documented in the user documentation, yes.
Yeah, no, that I think, and if you want, I'm happy to discuss that offline, but I think there's going to be like a common shared portion, and then there might be like a section that's like, if you're doing this, you have to do these extra steps, or this becomes that. But I can help with that if you want.
To follow back, I was going to say there's always the next demo to catch, so it's better to just get some iterations and then regrade later next time. It's always okay to set it as a 1 if it's unclear about the grade for now.
Right. Anything else we need to cover in this demo then before we end the recording?
Well, I think we specifically were looking at NPM this time, right? Like that's what we saw get added.
Yeah, but this was again NPM with vendor dependency. This specific validates JavaScript with NPM test is using an internal registry that has been set up, which is more a realistic approach. So this is a local instance serving packages within your network.
Right. But I think we could say it's probably like a 3 for JavaScript NPM because it's sort of almost there, or maybe a 2. And then the rest are 1s for right now, and we could go through them another time. That's up to everybody though. But like the other ones, I put in 1s for the ones we know aren't working. But we could say it's 1 for Maven and Yarn because we haven't demoed them yet.
It's definitely one for Maven because I tested it and it's failing. We know it's failing right now. For 8 p.m., it could be a 2 because we have this working with Gymnasium. And for Yarn, it's the same, could be a 2, it's working with Gymnasium, but not with retired GS for the same reason of the vendor jobs I have shown.
Yeah, because NPM was the one we were looking at. So Kevin, would you be okay with a 2 for NPM just because it's sort of working, and then we could try and up it next time? That's the type of dependency we added.
Yeah, I get it. I understand. I don't think it matters. Yeah, 2's fine. It's just semantics.
Hey Todd, the offline environment portion of it is that's pretty consistent across the board with every, right? It's the same.
Yeah.
In the interest of time efficiency, Kevin and Mac, would you be okay with just having that done as a pre-step to the demo? Because it feels like we've got that nailed, and that would help with efficiency.
Proof air gap, you mean?
Yeah, proving that.
Yeah, I think so. That's how we said we want to iterate. So if that's like rinse repeat, pretty stable, let's compress it down and focus on what matters. And if everybody's
offline environment, by the way, not air gap, offline environment.
Offline environment. Sorry about that.
Let's get terminology consistent.
My only
same language, all that good stuff.
My only concern with that was that since we are sending these to different customers to like review and watch, if they're only watching the one because like the person really cares about dependency but doesn't care about the other ones, they might be lost or confused. That was my only thought that I think I brought up on the last one.
Yeah,
I mean, could we do one video
for that specific purpose, just to say?
Yeah, that would be acceptable.
So like we're just trying to make sure, you got 16 people on the call and we're all trying to be efficient with time, and that's all.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Yeah, so I want to address the customer's concerns. So that would be the option. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, sure. I think that's a good approach. Thanks.
Okay,
great.
So I guess I'll have to make an issue for that, and we'll just record a video of just our environment improving its air gap, and then it can be sent in conjunction with any of the other videos.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is if like for one of these, if we have another VM that gets added to the offline network that needs to be used for one of these, like to host Maven, if we're doing that outside of GitLab, if we were, because that's something different, maybe that would be worth mentioning at the beginning of that demo if it was the case that was needed. That's all, if that makes sense.
Great. Before we disband, just want to update. I helped Nicole out by updating the formula. So let me just screen share real quick. Can everybody see the scorecard again? Yes. Yep. Thank you, sirs. So it's fixed now. So this should be live. And I think the team knows the pattern already. So this is where we're at dependency scanning. And if we want to expand the rest, it's the same pattern. But I think we should get into a conjunction of before it ends, let's show the screen so everybody, our stakeholders watching the recording can have a high-level view, bird's eye view where we're at week to week. Great progress. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining the demo. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.